basically the chant went like this. I would say, who are we? Who are we saints? Who are we saints? Are we ready? How? Are we ready? How? Who are we saints? Who are we saints? Are we ready? How? Are we ready? How? This is New Orleans. How? 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 So that was the chant, right?
That was smooth. I still got it.
Welcome to another episode of Thanalysis Show with your one and only Thanasis Antetokounmpo and Tony C.
What up, what up, what up?
Before we start, I want to give a huge thank you to our sponsors off the court. Remember, it's always Thanalysis presented by Gruber Offices. Thanalysis, one call.
That's all.
Thank you.
We should show the live audience here. So if you're from Wisconsin, you know David Gruber, you know Gruber. So anytime we say one call, I need all of you guys to respond. That's all. All right, let's try it one more time. Tia, hit him with it.
One call. That's all. Yes.
They're good. They're good to go.
The chat. Want to thank Prisoner Wine Company. They're amazing. Please go get a bottle. You guys are going to love it. Want to thank Potawatomi Casino Hotels. Whenever you're in Milwaukee, go try, be there, and stay there. They have huge entertainment purchases, and you might win some money. You never know. And last but not least,
your favorite.
McDonald's in the building. Thank you, guys. Back to the show. Today, presenting, having a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP from Dallas, Texas, and the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees.
Hey, that is quite a voice.
Thank you.
I told you, he's done this a time or two.
Yeah, I like that.
First of all, thank you so much for doing the show.
Yeah.
It's an honor. First of all, it's an honor to have you in Green Bay. It's an honor to have you in Wisconsin. You know, we are the big cities. We've had legends, and we need more. We need more people. You know.
Well, it's the first time I've been in Green Bay where it's just like a relaxed atmosphere for me. You know, normally when I was coming here, it was to go try to beat Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers or, you know, one of these great Packer teams. So it was a lot more focused and intense. So this is a bit more relaxed and fun, so I appreciate that.
I was going to say, it's nice to have you here without having to worry about you throwing for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns across the street. So nice change of pace.
Yes.
So before we really get going into some of these questions, if anyone here has watched a Bucs game that Thanasis has participated in, you may have seen his team intro. You know, they do the intros, the team huddles up. TA was sometimes in the middle getting the team hype and ready to go.
Yes.
Who did you get that inspiration from?
So I had 3 people who, like, okay, so let me start from the beginning. So before the games, I was thinking like, okay, how do I get guys motivated? What do I say? Because, you know, my English is not my first language, so I gotta get guys with, you know, with just through action, through emotion, through, you know, just getting dialed in. And I would watch 3 people, right? And I would watch Dion, I would watch Ray Lewis, and I would watch you. Right, and you'd have this amazing speech, and you actually talk to them, not only the emotion, the scream, and let's go, and no, just talk to them. This is what we're gonna do. This is what's gonna happen today, and all these things. And I had to say it. I wanted to say it. You know, like you inspired me to how to do my pregame chants, and it really. I mean, we've been, you know, Milwaukee has been in the mix in the top for a minute now. You know, with the Bucs, and so it does play a big role because of your influence. I'm a kid who's from Greece. I've never watched football. Yeah. Never. I didn't grow up with football. And to be able to, you know, inspire me in that level, not even saying like, oh, I'm going to go watch it. Like, no, into how to motivate somebody, how to leadership. Yeah. You know, because leadership doesn't come only from the best player. It comes through the team, through the glue. Yeah. But I do want to hear from you, like, how do you approach that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd say is, you know, in the NFL, we play 16 or now 17 regular season games. You guys play 82, right? So not to say that every game isn't important. It certainly is. But then that's a grind, right, for you guys. 82 games. And so you got, guys are banged up and this, that. So to get guys motivated and focused to play their very best each and every night and make every game feel like, man, this could be the most important game of the season, right? That takes a lot. And so that's why that element of you getting everybody hyped up is so important. And the role of one guy on the team just to be able to take the bull by the horns and be like, all right, man, I'm going to be the guy to bring the juice. Yeah. Like those guys on the team, like I can think of a few, like Mark Ingram was a running back for us for you know, 8 years. And he was that guy for us, like in the locker room, before we went out on the field, who was just like headphones on, walking around, like calling guys out, just like juice, right?
Yeah.
So those guys were so important. So going back to kind of how the chant evolved for us and our team and how I got involved in that. First off, you don't see the quarterback typically is the guy who's doing that, right? Or at least back in 2007 when this started for us, like it was usually, hey, it's the linebacker, the defensive end, or, one of the guys who's, out there banging his head against the wall every play that's like bringing that type of hype. But when I got to New Orleans in 2006, I'd say the unquestioned emotional leader of our team was a guy named Joe Horn. You guys remember Joe Horn? Receiver, really kind of outspoken, emotional, great football player. I love Joe Horn. So Joe was that guy who, pregame, a lot of us, it was our first year in New Orleans. This is that first year post-Katrina. We arrive 06. We're going out on the field for game day, and there's Joe Horn, like, eye black, all painted up on his face, just getting guys hype. And we're like, all right, that's Joe, and we're getting hype.
Yeah, I wish they let us do it, too, in the NBA. I wish they let us do, like, the...
So you guys can't do it all.
I don't think so.
They would get fined.
But here's the thing,
quickly.
obviously you don't have a helmet on, right?
Yeah,
so y'all got to look pretty and, run around. Like, we got the helmet on so we can do that stuff. But no. So Joe was the guy who did that, but Joe got hurt mid-season in 06. So then he missed the second half of the season. So other guys tried to kind of step in and replace what Joe would do, but it wasn't the same effect, right? So 07's rolling around, and Joe had moved on to another team. And so I was sitting there going, well, who's going to take over this role? Like, who's going to get the guys hyped up before the game like Joe Horn used to do? And I'm looking around, I'm like, well, if nobody's going to do it, I guess I'll do it, right? Now, typically, that's not the QB. Like, we're supposed to be kind of calm, cool, poised, going into a game. We're not like the, rah-rah hype guy. But I was like, somebody's got to do it. I'll put myself in that position. So then you start thinking about the motivation. Like, man, what do I want to convey to the guys? Like, what's going to get them hyped up? And if you guys remember, the movie 300 had just come out. Right?
Of course I do.
Yeah, Battle of Thermopylae, right? Yeah, right? Spartan Warriors, right?
Yeah.
So there's a couple scenes in that movie that like really stand out. So there's the part where the Persians actually come into the Spartan village and they're kind of being threatening to King Leonidas and his wife and the family. And at some point he goes, "This is Sparta," and he kicks the dude into the black hole, right? And then they're marching to like the hot gates, to kind of meet the Persians, and they run into another group of like Greek, like a Greek village, right? But they're like villagers, they're like, guys that are carrying, like farm equipment to go fight the Persians, this sophisticated army, right? And King Leonidas is looking at these guys and they're like, hey, we want to join you. And Leonidas is like, no, you're not soldiers, And the guy's like, no, we have more men than you. And he's like, oh yeah, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm a blacksmith. What do you do? I'm a carpenter. What do you do? Oh, I'm a silversmith. And he's like, Spartans, what is your profession? Ahoo, 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 right? And he's like, it looks like I have more warriors than you, right? And then they're like, no thanks, we'll go fight this thing on our own, right? So those two scenes, I was like, all right, that kind of gets you hype, right? So I was like, okay, how can I kind of weave this into something for our team prior to the game? So I remember I kind of presented it to the team in a team meeting prior to our first preseason game, and that was going to be like the first kind of dry run at this. And one of my close friends was our right tackle, Zach Streif. And I was like, dude, you got to be honest with me. Like, if this thing falls flat, I just need you to be like, nah, bro, it ain't working, right?
This ain't it.
Right? Like, because I'm the quarterback and everybody might be like, oh, yeah, we like it. But, like, deep down, nah, dude, that's not working. So I'm like, you got to be honest with me. So I presented it to him, and then we went out on game day, and we did it for the first time. And basically the chant went like this. I would say, who are we? Who are we, saints? Who are we, saints? Are we ready? How? Are we ready? How? Who are we, saints? Who are we, saints? Are we ready? How? Are we ready? How? This is New Orleans. How? So that was the chant, right?
That was smooth. You still got it.
So we did it, and like it felt like fire. I mean, it was just like, everybody was just all jacked up. And I looked at Zach Streif, like, come on, bro, tell me that was good. And he just goes, oh, I was like, all right, we got something, So that was like the genesis of it. That was the inspiration of it. And then guys loved it, but then each year you felt the pressure of like, okay, new year, new team, like new mission, we got to come up with something different. So every year had a different like motivation, inspiration. That one was the movie 300. At some point it was a song, you know, it'd be like a rap song. Another one it would be the poem, the Jungle Book poem. The strength of the pack is the wolf, strength of the wolf is the pack, right? There was, like, I wove in all kinds of stuff, but probably the best one we did was the year we won the Super Bowl, 2009. So I went on a USO trip to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and spent 4 or 5 days there with the Marines. And at one point they asked me one morning to get up and do PT with them. So I get up 5 in the morning doing PT with the Marines. And this is like the movie A Few Good Men. You all seen the movie A Few Good Men? Right, so I'd like dreamt of this moment, right? So, man, we're up early and we're running, and one of the Marines would jump off the side and he would bark out cadence to the rest of the Marines, and that's what kind of kept us in rhythm, right? Yeah. As we were basically like jogging and doing a bunch of calisthenics and other stuff. And at one point, one of these Marines just started barking out this cadence. It was, when I say 1, you say 2. When I say kill, you say for you. 1, 2, kill for you. When I say 3, you say 4. When I say kill, you say some more. 3, 4, kill some more. When I say 5, you say 6. When I say kill, you say for kicks. 5, 6, kill for kicks. When I say 7, you say 8. When I say kill, you say it's great. 7, 8, kill, it's great. When I say 9, you say 10. When I say kill, you say again. 9, 10, kill again, kill again. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like, first off, it keeps you in rhythm, right? Like all you're thinking about is like, don't screw up the cadence, right? Like just bark it back out. But it creates this rhythm, it creates this togetherness. Now, obviously the Marines are trained to do one thing, and I'm coming back to the team and I'm like, okay, I got my chant. I was like, I got to modify this a little bit because, you know, Goodell and the league probably won't like me going out there saying we're going to kill people. But it was like, okay, how can I? So it was like, what are we trained to do, man? We're trained to go out here and find a way to win, right? And every time out, it's win, and then it's win again, win again. So ours became 1, 2, win for you, 3, 4, win some more, 5, 6, win for kicks, 7, 8, win, it's great, 9, 10, win again, win again, win again. And we just get hyped. And we rattled off 13 wins in a row. So that's when it's like, okay, what we're saying is coming to reality, right? Like it's coming to fruition. And then we ended up going on and winning the Super Bowl. So that was one of my favorites.
So we obviously can thank the Marines for a lot of things, but New Orleans Saints fans can thank the United States Marine Corps for that Super Bowl in 2009.
It's crazy. You know, so when I was doing my pregame chant, I had like some different ones, and then, but the one that we won all the way, that we won, you know, where we was on the run and we beat Phoenix, Brooklyn, K, like all the guys, and they had me do the same one. Like I wanted to change it. I was like, no, you got to do the same one. And now that he said that, like, he brings back like so much of like, how did I get to this? And I remember, like, how they say like, first we hit the flow, like, whoo.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So and then I was hearing it in the NFL and in at the high school chants. Then I heard it at the NFL at college, and then I modified it, and I did like. You want to hit it? You want to do it? Hold on.
I think we should show Drew how to do it.
Okay,
here,
so listen, look at this. First we hit the flow like who. Okay, so you got that?
Yep.
Okay.
Easy enough.
First we hit the flow like who. Starting 5 like who. Bench mob like who. Any sound like who. Hit the flow like who. All day like who. Any sound like who. And then we did this the whole time. And I guarantee you, I don't know how to explain this because especially my brother, who's like, he's like this. He's like a robot. He doesn't see nothing. Like you could be yelling, a lady with a baby, and Giannis, this, that. When he's on the court, like a robot. And then I saw him react and I was like, oh, this is it. Let's go. This is it. He reacted, this is it. Yeah. And then, how Drew, the guys. But it's just this togetherness, like unity around the fire, this thing that gets you to where you want to be. So now, what is something okay? You had the run and you guys won. Like, did you have any moments that you was like, okay, this is getting harder? This is like the moments that you said, okay, this is where we need to we got to pull everybody together now.
No, once you win one, like it's an intoxicating feeling from the perspective that, man, you've worked your whole life for that moment, right? And so then you win one, and you recognize how great it feels, and you recognize that you're now linked with those guys forever, right? And look, it was my 9th season in the NFL when we won a Super Bowl, so 2009. And all you're thinking about is, man, how do we get back here? You know, and that level of sustained success is then what you begin to focus on. And how do you not sit back on your laurels like the job is done? It's not done. How do we continue to improve each and every year to get back here? Because each year it gets harder and harder. And maybe we were flying under the radar a little bit, and now everybody knows, you know, who we are and what we're about. And so now you have a little bit of the bullseye on your chest, and, you know, it just, that's where it becomes a bit harder too, is just because there's more focus on you. I actually spent a lot of that offseason talking to guys who had been able to sustain championship levels, you know, won multiple championships. I remember Troy Aikman being an example of a quarterback who won, you know, 3 out of 4 Super Bowls, right, in the early 90s. I was a kid growing up in Austin, Texas, watching the Cowboys my teenage years. So, like, that was America's team, right?
America's team, he said it. I asked, I had an interview with Roy Lee.
Yeah, we had Roy Lee, as Reggie White calls him.
I asked him, I was like, what does, they said the Cowboys are like America's team. I thought the Green Bay Packers was to me.
Well, I would agree, but so it just goes to show you with a little marketing, you know, how all of a sudden the perception could be like, oh yeah, Cowboys America's team. But yeah, I was a Texas kid, right?
Okay,
so
yeah.
I grew up in Texas, and this was like my formative years. Like, man, I'm your age watching the Cowboys win 3 out of 4 championships, right? And so, I mean, that's what that epitomized what you would want to be a part of, you know, and be a part of that type of an organization that could have that type of sustained success. And obviously they had some really great players, you know, during that period of time. But yeah, that's what, the irony is that when I got into the NFL, all I wanted to do was beat the Cowboys, right? But at the time, man, I was a huge Cowboy fan. And so back to the story of, man, talking to Troy, like, it made Troy, what did it take, right? Especially with having so many strong personalities in that locker room, like they did. You know, it was the Michael Irvins and the Deons.
That's what was going to be my next question.
Right,
the personalities, the way you...
exactly. So how do you still get everybody to where, you know, everyone's focused on the team and focused on winning and keeping the main thing. But one guy who I've had a chance to be around and talk with through those times was Michael Jordan.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's like a dream for any basketball player.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And look, like, even as a kid, I mean, that was, you know, like, there were so many great teams and like dynasties of basketball from in the 80s and 90s, right? It was the Celtics, it was the Lakers, it was the Pistons, and then it was the Bulls, and right, like, so as a kid, you know, who loves the sport, and you're just kind of watching these, and then you just start focusing on, there's a lot of attention to the great players, but then you start really focusing on the team dynamics, and then what is required of the leaders on those teams to pull it all together. Like, I know, as everybody, you know, during COVID, I was like locked in on The Last Dance, right? And everybody is, right? And still, like, I've watched it 3 times, just because I love watching the team dynamics. And obviously Jordan being a guy who demanded so much, not just of his players, but like of himself. I mean, he set the example. It's not like he was just talk. Like, the guy was obviously the greatest basketball player of all time. But Jordan has a way of, as great a basketball player as he was, and certainly as talented as he was, you always just got the impression he was just working harder than everybody. And his fundamentals were just better than everybody. And so I think for a guy like me, who, man, I was never the biggest, right? I mean, 6 foot, 200 pounds, right? I'm not the prototype guy at my position, never have been. But I always felt like my secret weapon was I was gonna outwork everybody, and I was gonna be more fundamentally sound than everybody. I was gonna be more self-aware than anybody, and I was gonna lead my guys better than anybody. So that was, and that's honestly what I drew from him in a lot of ways through those conversations that offseason.
You have, you want to ask something else?
Well, I was just going to say, so we recently just did an episode of this show with Giannis, and he was talking about the one time he's met Michael Jordan. It was very quick. It was a quick handshake, and what that meant to him as an athlete. Obviously, he had a profound impact just being able to watch him, whether it's The Last Dance or your meetings, but the times you met him post-Super Bowl, trying to sustain that greatness, what's the best advice you got from MJ?
So I asked him, like, how do you know, what allows you to continue to improve even after you've experienced great success, you know? And I think human nature is for complacency to set in, right? So it's that constant state of improvement, right? But also just being a clutch player, you know, like what allows you to be a clutch player in clutch moments? And it was amazing because like his answer was pretty simple. It was like, first off, I know my fundamentals are better than everybody else because of the time and effort that I put into them. So that's never something I'm ever worried about on the court. Like in big moments, all I'm thinking about is how I'm gonna get to certain spots on the court to make the shots that I wanna make, right? And I know that my fundamentals are gonna help me get into those spots to where then you don't even think about it. Because if you have a vision for what's about to happen, like I got this guy covering me, I'm gonna get open, and all I have to do is get to that spot and I'm gonna make that shot, right? And you just have this vision of what that looks like. And for me, it's like, all right, all I'm trying to do is get that matchup, and I know my guy's gonna be here, and just get me to that spot, get him to that spot, and I'm gonna make that play. So it's really just, it was my fundamentals are gonna be better than everybody else, and then create the vision for what's about to happen, and just get me to that spot.
Which one is that's amazing. I mean, that's kind of what we talk about all the time. That, you know, because for basketball, the difference is, you know, is for you, somebody's guarding you, you got to pass to your teammate. For us, even though we pass the teammate, we got to still put it in the basket. So the spots really play a big role for us. You know, where we're gonna be on the court. But I wanted to ask you, what's been your toughest play you ever had to make that you consider tough? Like, this is the toughest play I've made.
Oh man.
I mean, you've made a couple, so you don't have to pick one.
I'd maybe say it like this: is I could feel a play unfold to where I could almost predict.
Walk me through this. I have no clue.
Yeah.
Walk me through this.
So I would say one of the most artistic plays or throws in football that a quarterback will need to make is a back shoulder throw. Are you familiar with that term? So, like, anytime a guy is running vertically down the field, so whether it's a seam or whether it's a go route, in most cases you think, okay, well, he's gonna beat the defender and you're gonna throw this nice, high, arcing ball over the top and the receiver's gonna run under it and catch it like this, you know? Like, that's kind of what we all envision when we think of like a go route. Well, what happens if the DB is, you know, faster than your guy, or he is on top of or higher than your guy? Well, you don't want to throw the ball over the top now because that's where the defender is. So really you're just thinking, how do we use this term, throw your receiver open. How do you throw him open? The route on paper would say that, well, you're supposed to throw it over the top, but if the defender's there, where can you throw the ball where your guy can get it and the DB can't? Yeah. Well, that becomes a ball that's here because the DB's here. Yes. You throw the ball here, you just put your player in between the defender and the ball. So that's what is going to help you complete the pass. So that's why they call it a back shoulder, right? Because you're throwing it to their back shoulder. Well, there's a lot of different ways to do that, depending on whether the seam route is on the interior part of the field or whether it's along the sideline. But some of my favorite throws and the most difficult throws were when you had a tight end like running right through the middle of the field and you've got two high safeties that are converging on him. You have a middle linebacker that's running with him, and you can't throw it over the top because the ball's going to be in the air too long and you're going to get your guy smacked or get the ball picked off. There's this one spot where you can rip that ball, and he's going to run and he's going to jump and he's going to back shoulder it and be able to protect himself. Like, it's very exact.
You make it sound so simple that I think I could do it. This is just crazy, right? But that's the art of the game. When somebody simplifies something like this and says like, hey, and we see the game, you know, all these plays I've seen a lot of plays like that, but the way and in my head I'm like, oh my God, that's so hard in the millisecond to make that play. But the way you explained it is.
But it's like, 10,000 reps, you know, like you do it so much and more importantly, you visualize it so much. It's like you just wait for that window. So you're dropping back, and the minute you feel that, okay, that window is going to be there, and you trust it, and your guy trusts you, and he knows it's coming, So the minute he's running down the field and he feels this guy's high on him and everybody's converging, it's like, whoop, ball's gonna be there.
Now you say you guys trust you. I do want to ask you a question because I was reading some stories about like bonuses, right? And bonuses in the NBA and NFL work kind of different. Like in the NBA, it's in contract already. So basically, like sometimes it's rarely you might need a game to play to get your bonus. It's either points or playoffs, right? Either championship, which is the best bonus, obviously. The championship because and then you get every round more. Yeah. But then in the NFL, I see like games, I see passes, I see stuff that it's a lot of components to it. It doesn't only depends on me getting a rebound and I get my bonuses.
Well, you don't think about it until usually the last week of the season. I feel like it's becoming more publicized now. Like it used to be something that would just go around the locker room. Like I remember, my first 5 years in the league were with the San Diego Chargers. And so I remember us going into the end of one of the seasons and it was like, hey, this receiver, Tim Dwight, he needs 5 catches to make this bonus. This other receiver, Eric Parker, he needs 1 touchdown to make this bonus. Hey, this running back needs, 50 yards to get this bonus. This defensive end needs 1 more sack to get this bonus. And so basically, we all went out there as a team, and it's like, yes, we're trying to win the game, but you can be darn sure we're trying to get our boys the bonuses.
So walk me through this. Are you going like, just need a touchdown? I'm coming to you first?
No,
get it in?
No.
Or how do you
look? It's a challenge for a quarterback because you don't want it to negatively influence your decision making. Like I'm going to make great decisions, but it's more so like, okay, that's an easy completion. That's an easy completion. This guy's close to his bonus. You're going to get it, right?
With all the things you have to think about as QB, and then you got to factor those in the final.
You work that in a little bit.
That's what it means being the leader, though.
For sure,
Tony, right?
Yeah.
Because you really want to lead. And by example, and your players to trust you, you'll be like, hey, I'll go to
You're like, I love
you,
you, bro. You work your ass off. I'm going to try to get you paid. Let's go, right? That's what it is.
I want to get back to some questions there, but one of the reasons we're able to do this today is because of your involvement with State Line Distillery. And I know we wanted to talk about them a little bit, but also we had some sources on this. I heard that State Line was able to provide 2 of my favorite things, and that's booze and coffee, into one. So enlighten me, because I have not seen this or tried it yet. Hint, hint. But tell me about it.
Another Wisconsin, eh?
Yes.
That's right.
From Madison, Wisconsin.
Hey, great things happening here in Wisconsin. Well, that's how I fell in love with the brand too. Is just authenticity. I love the product. So State Line Distillery is in Madison, Wisconsin. The founder, John Melezova, is back here. There he is.
Thank you, John.
Give a round of applause for John back there.
So homegrown distillery, working with all of the local farmers to source the grains there. Kin Coffee, which is a coffee company right down the street in Madison. I've been to their facility. It's awesome. So basically, State Line Coffee Liqueur is locally sourced grains from the Wisconsin area, Kin cold brew coffee, and cane sugar. So 3 simple ingredients to produce what has been recognized now as the best coffee liqueur in the world by the San Francisco World Spirits Competition 2 years in a row. So 32 judges, blind taste tests, 32 said this is the very best.
So now, I know where you went to college. We can ignore that for a second. You're basically a Wisconsinite now. So
Purdue University, close enough.
Can we get one of these? Can we get a W?
Hey, we got this Midwest corridor here, right?
I thought we could just get one W out of Drew Brees here today.
The Badgers? No. I had too many battles in Camp Randall Stadium to throw up the
You threw like 80 passes in a game at Camp
83,
Randall. 83
to be
it was? Okay, yeah. Didn't mean to shortchange you there.
Yeah.
83, oh my God.
Most of them were good. A couple of them were bad.
What was the most you ever threw in an NFL game?
Probably close to 60, although that's unusual because you only get about 70, good offenses get 70 plays a game in the NFL. But that day in Madison, Wisconsin, we ran 108 plays. 83 passes, 25 runs. Ron Dane rushed for like 250 yards and beat us right at the end.
That's crazy how he managed
it was an NCAA record for about 25 years. We held the record for a while.
Wait, someone beat the passing record or the total
plays?
Yeah,
I think somebody from Washington State. Maybe it was like a Mike Leach offense or something.
Now that we're talking about like who beating the records, what do you think? Who's your who are the new quarterbacks? What do you say like, okay, these guys they got it. This is
Well,
who do you see? Like,
I don't know if there's ever been a time in the NFL where you looked around and there were this many really talented, young, exciting quarterbacks to watch. Like it's pretty insane. Like the Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, like the 2 guys that are in the draft this year, the 6 guys that came out last year, right? The Jaden Daniels, the Bo Nix, the Caleb Williams. I know New England loves Drake May. You know, I haven't seen him play a bunch, but.
By the way, I'm waiting for you to say Jordan Love, by the way. I'm just waiting.
Dude, I love Jordan Love. I work out with Jordan Love in San Diego. His fiance is Veronica Stone. She plays professional volleyball down there. So I've worked out with him the last 2 years down there. I think Jordan Love is one of the top 5 young quarterbacks in the league right now. Jalen Hurts, he's a Texas kid.
Yes.
Second-round pick like me. I think the list goes on. Like every one of these guys, you feel like could be.
Who was okay? So who were the guys in your generation? Like who was the quarterbacks? In your
generation? Good.
Your top 5.
Top 6. Good question because I guess let's even go back further than that. Like the 1983 NFL draft was a pretty historical draft because that was John Elway, Dan Marino. And then it was like Tony Eason, Todd Blackledge. There was a couple others. So basically it was like 6 QBs, I think, went in the first round. That was unprecedented at the time. And obviously a couple of those became Hall of Famers, right? So there was that era that also was like the Steve Youngs and the Joe Montanas. And then you got into the 90s and it was, I guess, like Aikman and Bledsoe. You still had, obviously, Elway, Marino, like all those guys. Then I would say like 1998 draft was Peyton Manning. 2000 draft was Tom Brady. I was the 2001 draft, okay? And then you had I would also lump us in with the era of 2004 draft was Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger. 05 draft was Aaron Rodgers, right? So I would say that era there, right? Look, there's probably a few others I would throw in there too. Like Michael Vick was my draft class. Michael Vick played, 13, 14 years in the league, yes. And I think transformed the position in a lot of ways, right? So there was that era, and now I think you've now kind of jumped to this new era of QBs over the last couple of years that I think is going to define the position in a lot of ways.
You kind of said like 10 names now in this era. Like you said, so many guys. Like for people who, might be listening, might be watching the show or, and they idolize you and like if I want to become a quarterback, what separates a good and a great quarterback? What separates those two? Because I feel in basketball it's way easier in basketball. In basketball it's always, professionalism right away, how professional you are. And obviously your and body type kind of separates you from the others. It guys gives you another tier of players,
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the way we see it is, they're great players all around their league, but then you see the prototypes, right? The hybrids, the LeBrons, the KDs, the Thanalysis, the guys who are just
freaky.
Yeah, you just can't do nothing with them,
Yeah.
So that's that tier by themselves. But I feel like in the NFL is different, right? Like what separates a good from a great quarterback? From a great quarterback, yeah.
Yeah. So it was always, our sport is interesting because you're out there with 10 other guys on offense, right? Yeah. And man, if the left tackle is having a rough day, then that can significantly affect your ability to do your job.
Yes.
But what I've found is that like the great quarterbacks, despite what's going on around them, they have the ability to order the chaos and they have the ability to be a problem solver, right? So that number one. Number two, they make everyone around them better, right? So they can take maybe a group of not as talented players and they can make them look a lot better than they would, maybe on another team or with another quarterback, right? And then really what it comes down to in our game is many of the good games or the good QB matchups, it comes down to the last possession of the game. So how are you able to manage the final 4 minutes of the game? Really, it's like the last 4 minutes of a half and the last 4 minutes of the game. The guys who can manage that the best, because that's where the game is won and lost. And it's usually a play here and a play there.
So now that you're not in the NFL, I know a lot of things, businesses take up a lot of your time, but what makes a great pickleball player? Because I've heard you might be into that a little bit.
Here's the thing,
too.
I like all racket sports. Like I played some tennis as a kid. Both my parents, would take us out on the weekends to do it. So I've had a racket in my hand since I was a kid. So now you look at all the sports that have come on the heels of tennis. Pickleball obviously exploded during COVID. I don't know if you've heard of padel. Padel's a big European sport.
That's what we do.
See, I love
training camp. That's how we do training camp.
Dude, I love padel, right? So padel requires a bit more athleticism, so I don't think it's going to be as widely accepted as maybe like a pickleball. But it's probably my favorite racket sport right now. And then there's another one coming down the pipeline.
What's it called?
Well, it hasn't been announced yet. I can't. Okay. But it's coming.
Okay, I won't put you on
a sport hasn't been announced.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I won't put you on the spot about this, but let me put you on the spot about something else, right?
Yeah.
And NBA players get asked about this all the time, right? What about like owning a team? What about you being in ownership of the NFL?
Yeah.
We get asked all the time, like NBA guys, like, hey, would you own a team? Would you do this?
Yeah.
And like, would you own a team? Would you?
Yes. Yeah, I envision that.
Which
Absolutely.
team?
What's that?
Which team?
Well, I think that's obvious, but no. Honestly, I think that former players, especially, I think that have deep connections with the cities and the communities, and obviously an incredible working knowledge of what it is to not only just build the winning team, but the culture that goes into not just the locker room, but that permeates throughout the building, and then how all the departments work together. Look, I'm as interested in the business side of the game as I am in the team dynamic and the culture side of the game. So I think that's where especially guys that have played a long time, have the opportunity to bring great value, like Tom Brady and what he's attempting to do with the Raiders, right? I think we're entering this era where obviously you have a ton of these established owners that have done an incredible job to build the profile of the league, to build the profiles of their team and the brand, but also the ancillary business stuff that comes as a result of not just the operation of the team, but all the other opportunities that come alongside that. That is stuff that really intrigues me and an area where I think I can bring tremendous value.
I do think he does play a big role too for the league to be able to let the players do that in any sport, right? In the NBA or in the NFL, because it creates a sense of loyalty. Like there's no reason for like Dirk Nowitzki, let's say example, not to be in the Dallas ownership when he's been so long there. Even if you spend over a decade with the team, like you should be able to be involved, and not only for the fan base, because there's generations that watch you play and you were their favorite player, and but you exactly what you said about the community and as a player, kind of understanding every tier and every level of a team, right?
This is the way I look at it too, and I think there's probably no better example than Green Bay. And Green Bay is unlike any ownership scenario in the world from the perspective that truly the fans own the team, right?
One-on-one.
Like what one of one, right? Where else does that exist?
Do we have any owners here?
Yeah. Shareholders.
Yeah,
exactly.
Tonight.
But I felt this way in going to New Orleans. New Orleans is a perfect example. I think everybody can appreciate this. We all got to New Orleans 6 months post Hurricane Katrina. The city had been completely devastated, right? And so I think all of us who came there truly came there with this calling, that we were being called there not just to be football players, but more importantly, to be a part of the resurgence of one of America's greatest cities. And as much as we could do in the community, that equaled anything that we could do on the field. Now we recognize that, hey, by putting forth a winning product, that would lift the spirits of everybody and it would just help with the whole process. But at the end of the day, I think as I went through that journey, I also recognized, there's always going to be ebbs and flows in sports, right? Like you're going to have your good years, you're going to have your, sometimes your bad years or your good runs and your bad runs. At the end of the day, like what keeps the fans coming back into the stadium, right, and supporting the team? And to me, it's a deeper connection that those fans feel for the players. Not just the fact that, hey, they grew up watching the team with their parents and so they've just been indoctrinated into being a fan. Yep. It's like no, I'm going to support so-and-so because I know the commitment that they make to this community. And so I'm going to be there to support them just like they're here to support me. So that way you're never just riding the highs and the lows. Like, man, we're in this thing together and we're steady every step of the way.
I know we just got a couple minutes left because.
Oh no! If we have a couple of minutes left, I want to ask you, when are you coming to Greece? Have you ever?
I have been to Greece. It was 2008. I went there with my wife and then my brother-in-law and his girlfriend at the time. But we set it up to where he was going to get engaged in Greece. So my brother-in-law got engaged in Greece.
If you want to get married, engaged, you come to Greece.
So we spent some time in Athens. We did a bunch of stuff in and around there. We actually took a boat through some of the Greek Isles. Funny story, we ended up in Mykonos and we rented scooters to go up to the top. Now that's a treacherous, like skinny road and cars are driving crazy. There's no barriers on the side. Like you're just, so we get up to the top of this mountain. It's beautiful, this and that. And my wife's throttle got stuck on her thing. So she ended up running into this fence, barbed wire, like got cut up. I go down to try to like get to the service station to call some help. And I hit the front brake on the thing, and I go flying over the handlebars on this thing. This is 2008, so like I'm in the NFL, right? Like, so anyway, good memories from Greece.
How do you explain that one to the team?
Right. Like,
they also won the Super Bowl the next year, so maybe it helped.
Yeah, no, it definitely did.
Hey,
help.
Things worked out okay.
It definitely did help. So in Greece, and I don't know if they do this here, obviously in the States, but in Greece, like in all the professional teams, they don't let us drive scooters. It's banned in that contract right away because a lot of athletes would go like, during the weekends, we all go to the islands and they would ride scooters. And, in the islands, it's just rocks. It's not road.
No.
But I can see that happening. I know. I know. It's scary. It's scary.
It's beautiful over there. Love it.
We have some rapid fire questions for you, but is there an activity now that you enjoy that you contractually weren't allowed to do when you were in the league?
I mean, it's like ski,
You couldn't ski when you were playing?
Yeah, ski, snowboard. I just chose not to. I mean, that would have been a no-no, right? I mean, there's a lot of,
It's hard.
Knees and shoulders, that's...
Where do you ski? Where?
Montana, Utah.
Okay. Oh, so in the States? Okay.
Yeah, in the States, yeah.
You should try Europe, too. Europe is...
Yeah?
It's good for skiing?
But by the way, I've never skied, I've never snowboarded, and I don't think I'm going to. By the way.
Gravity's not really working in your favor.
But I do have I've done meetings and stuff like that, and in great places, like great hotels. They have this they're all like spas, and it's resorts and
so you do the spa.
I do the spa, the meeting.
And others are skiing. Okay, I got you. Switzerland.
Okay, go Switzerland. Yes.
Right.
And then
it's on the list. There's
another country that's named Andorra, and it's a small country in between Spain and France.
Really?
Yeah. And you can go, it's amazing.
Okay.
It's amazing.
I'm putting that on the list.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I need some recommendations.
I got you.
All right.
Let's take care of them.
Yeah,
sure.
What's the rapid questions?
A couple rapid fire questions. We like to ask all of our guests this at some point on the show. So one of the things people who listen know, I generally, for some reason, always talk about food. So one food the rest of your life, what is it?
Country fried steak.
That was easy.
I'm a Texas kid, man. I grew up, grandma's country fried steak and biscuits with honey, cinnamon rolls.
Everything. He gave the whole description. Yeah.
When TA asked me this on a show not too long ago, I just said Mexican food. I didn't specify. I was just like the whole.
Yeah, the whole. See, I'm a Tex-Mex. I was a Tex-Mex guy being down in Austin. But yeah, I mean, basically tacos, street tacos, 5 days a week, easy.
My man.
Yeah.
Easy. Okay, let me go to the next question. What movie? You have a movie that's ever made you cry?
Oh yeah, Hoosiers. Every time.
Hoosiers?
Every time. Yeah. That scene at the end with Jimmy Chitwood, So it's actually a funny story. So I went, there was one summer when my boys were little and I was like, man, we have not watched enough legendary sports movies. So I made a list of all the legendary sports movies. I'm like, I'm gonna watch every one of these with my boys. And so we get to Hoosiers and we're watching Hoosiers and obviously, great story. And it gets to the end and there's the scene in the championship game where, they have one shot to go win the game and they try to orchestrate it for another guy and that you could tell the team's like, God, that's not gonna work. And Jimmy Chitwood, who's the star player, is there and he looks at the coach and he's like, I'll make it. And dude, I got tears running down my face. And my boys are like, Dad, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, you don't understand. Jimmy Chitwood was... You know, his dad died and he wasn't going to play, and now he's playing, and he's like, I'm going to make it, you know, and he makes it. So anyway, every time I cry, Jimmy Chitwood.
I love when you ask people that question because we had Hall of Famer, people in this room will know, Leroy Butler on the show a couple weeks ago. And I didn't mean to laugh at him, but he said Titanic gets him every single time.
He said Titanic, but you got to watch the show to see why he said Titanic. That was funny part. Okay, so for me, not being from the States, right, and I'm trying to like learn the American culture, like which movie would you tell me, like, you got to watch this movie to understand the American culture, or like these movies to understand?
Coming to America.
I thought every movie. I thought every movie. I've watched that already. But what other movie do you have? Is like, okay, you should watch it.
Any Eddie Murphy movie. No. That's a good question. It's
like, Thanasis, you gotta watch this movie.
What has been recommended to you?
So I've watched
the list of this.
Okay, so I've watched Life, obviously, Eddie Murphy movie. I've watched Coming to America. Then I watched, was it the Goodfellas?
Goodfellas, yep.
Yeah, no, seriously. I'm trying to know.
Yeah,
but while Drew thinks of this, so we've asked this question to pretty much every guest.
And everybody gives a different answer.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a different perception.
I think it was A.J. Dillon, who played for the Packers and now is Eagle, said Step Brothers.
Step Brothers, yeah.
Talladega Nights.
Yeah, that's a good one.
No, that's, here's the thing. Like, again, my Texas roots run deep. I spent a lot of time in the country. So, like, I loved, there was a series called Lonesome Dove. Did anybody see Lonesome Dove?
Got a couple head nods out there.
Kind of like Yellowstone before Yellowstone, you know?
With the ranch.
Like the cattle drive, kind of pioneering lifestyle, you know? And, but I don't know. I mean, I like all those, and I grew up watching, one of my grandfathers would sit and drink a Bloody Mary, smoke a cigar, and watch Westerns. And I would sit and watch John Wayne Westerns with him as a kid. Like I've watched every John Wayne Western about 5 times each.
Really?
Yes. So like I loved Westerns, and I loved kind of like the Old West and like the settling of so I love the Yellowstone series. Yellowstone, 1883, 1923, Landman now.
All these
Check it out.
You need to watch. Yeah, you need to watch that. That's a good like history of America. A little bit of current events worked in there.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of like subtle truths. You know, probably some politics, but
we'll have to report back because we for sure have to have you on the show again.
Yeah.
We could do this all day.
Yeah.
Right to the end.
First of all, you guys know who I will be watching the show and listening to the show. I don't like the ends because that means it's the end of the podcast. But today we had the honor to have this person, this entity, this legend in the building. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Please, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the show, whatever you get your podcast from. I'm available on every platform. Please follow him on his socials. Like, go crazy when this episode comes out. You know, he's having an amazing journey after the NFL and what he's doing, and he's doing some amazing stuff, and he's an amazing person. Tony, anything you want to say?
I just want to get one more very loud Wisconsin welcome, Lambeau Field style round of applause for our man Drew Brees right here.